Yeah, hello everyone. This is Sandeep here from ITC Infotech, and a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all who have signed up for this hospitality event, this fireside chat event that we have put together. I think we'll be talking about the entire role of technology in the revitalization of the hospitality industry, something which is a very current contemporary topic for all the folks who have been able to join in. I'm sure this will basically provide you with a lot of insights and a lot of learnings. For this particular conversation, we have got one of the industry stalwarts who basically has spent more than 3.5 decades in the hospitality industry. And it's really a special day for us because having somebody like Martin Bookallil on this particular chat session is really something that we are privileged to have. He's a person who basically has uh, comes from Australia, has been a hospitality technology leader for many years. He basically did his diploma in hotel management in Switzerland, and then has contributed to global hospitality chains for more than 3 decades and across continents. He currently holds the position of being the continental leader based in Hong Kong as the Vice President, Information Technology Asia Pacific for Marriott International, the largest hospitality chain in the world. He oversees IT functions for over 700 plus managed hotels, 160 plus franchisee hotels, 800 plus pipeline hotels, and 20 plus company-owned offices encompassing more than 1,100 odd IT associates who operate across 25 countries. Welcome to the Fireside Chat, Martin. Really happy to have this conversation with you.
Hi, Steve. How are you? It's great to be here today. Thanks for the opportunity, and especially the fact that this opportunity is with ITC. It really is a win-win for us. I mean, we have a partnership already, and it's a two-way partnership because you operate our hotels in Asia Pacific, and in return, we use your IT services for our rollout of various programs at our corporate office and here in Asia, including the 5.6 rollout of the Opera product. I've just escaped quarantine a couple of weeks ago in Hong Kong, so glad to be out of that, back here in my office, and I'm in Hong Kong. So great to be here. Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you, Martin. And I think given that we are all of us are kind of grappling with the COVID pandemic, I also want to wish all the folks in the audience that hopefully everything is safe. All their family members, friends, everybody is doing well as well. I think it's been a hard time, and I think we have seen that various industries have basically been grappling with this entire challenge of how do they really come out of this as well. The hospitality industry is no different, right? And in fact, it's one of the industries that has really been challenged dramatically by this particular pandemic. And just to kind of kick off the conversation, I will just kind of try and touch upon some of the macro trends that we have been observing in the hospitality industry, and then of course we would want to dip into the rich experience and insights from Martin. Um, so I think first and foremost, I think what's really been happening, I think in the last couple of years, especially, has been that there has been a certain acceleration of how services and products are being reinvented, reimagined in the hospitality industry. Today, for example, in India, some of the leading chains, for example, ITC Hotels or the Taj Group and so on and so forth, we find that they have come out with new products. These are, gourmet products delivered at home, or even, luxury laundry services, that, one could really kind of, experience coming from the finest hospitality chains. There are many such examples that we see across the hospitality industry, where people have started looking at, how do I really relook at my products and offering strategy? How do I really uh, unbundle, rebundle, reimagine my services as well? The second thing that's really been happening is in terms of this entire concept of digitization that is really kind of creeping in a very accelerated fashion. Um, in our experience, there is this entire concept of moments of truth that you really go through as a guest or as a customer when you interact with the industry, with a hotel. And many of these touch points, which used to be physical, are now being taken through the digital kind of reinvention as well. So that you're virtually setting up some sort of a digital engagement model or digital concierge, if one might call it that. And that is something which is fundamentally happening, or seems to be happening, across the board. um, Attached to that is the entire concept of how are we really revisiting and relooking at the customer journeys. So we have seen contactless come into being. We have seen new payment models, buy now, pay later, those kind of models kick in as well. We have also seen um, safety and hygiene become a very, very important part of the entire offering of every hospitality chain as well. The new customer journeys are being constructed, keeping all of these pretty much at the center. And I think that's a huge reinvention that is happening today. And obviously, from a technology perspective, there's so much that is happening there that is really enabling and making all of this possible. From a business model perspective, the entire migration to asset light, or asset right, if you may, is still something that seems to be, accelerated even further, thanks to the pandemic. And as most of the chains start getting into an expansion mode again, it seems to be driven more by the entire aspect of creating an outreach through the asset light strategy. Uh, and while all of this is happening, I think the entire pressure on operational costs is also, something that is kind of is a dragging force in the entire, process as well. And that is something that is potentially helping companies lean themselves out. And while they lean themselves out, how do they also build capabilities for the future and take that forward? So some these are some of the high level macro trends that we have experienced. And at this point, Martin, I would really want to probably hand over to you to basically get your insights on how are you really seeing these trends and imperatives evolve from your
Well,
vantage point, and how do you see the role of technology evolve within that as well?
sure, sure. So it's been a real evolution, and we're certainly not bored around here. There's plenty to do, plenty to going on. But when I first started in hotels, we had a system which was called the Whitney system, and the process is moving paper from one place to another on a rack at the front desk. So things have really changed. I mean, we then went into this basic data processing IT level of concept for a number of years, and then digital came along, that customer facing piece. And then there's been this IT digital convergence going on, more so in the last couple of years, where all of that's coming together in one place. And with that, companies like Marriott are undertaking transformation projects for their front and back end facing customer and associate experience. On the product side, there's been these back end systems and those customer facing systems that they're coming together all in one product. So they're not divided anymore. So a contactless check-in requires an associate to do certain functions and the guest to perform certain functions. So everybody participates in using the technology these days. And the same can be said for mobile key or using our mobile app. It's a process that requires effort on both sides of the equation. Around execution, we certainly have been moving to a above property arrangement, and that's in many ways. So not only when we talk about our human capital, where we have in Asia here over 60 clusters operating today, but also our cloud environments. And we're just on the verge of moving our PMS and POS systems to cloud. We hope to get over 800 hotels there in hubs based in India, in Singapore, and in China over the next 12 months. So we're certainly very active in that part. And then, of course, we've got this wind coming against us called security and privacy that we have to wind our way through on every corner and deal with. And it really is taking up more and more time to digest, interpret, and implement security and privacy controls around our technology. So I would summate it with those comments. Back to you, Sandeep.
Thanks, Martin. I think that was very insightful. So just moving to the next question. So we obviously are probably at the back end of a pandemic that has been very, very harsh, right? I think more than a year and a half to 2 years now, and I think we're all kind of coming to terms with what's happening within. Obviously, the hospitality sector has been one of the most adversely hit sectors, and the going in motto really seems to be, there is a three-step process, right? There's a survival, then there's a revival, and then how do you basically set up a strategy for thriving, if you may, right? In this entire continuum of survive, revive, and thrive, what is the role that you see the CIOs and the CTOs and the technology leaders really play in terms of engaging with the business teams to really enable this entire journey? So your insights, your commentary on that, Martin.
Sure. Well, luckily, having been around for a little while, we've been through this before. Our industry is susceptible to calamities. We've been through the Asian financial crisis, SARS, the Japanese earthquake and tsunamis, September 11. All these things have affected our business. But guess what? We always bounce back, and we're bouncing back now. And when we come back, we always come back bigger and stronger. So I'm encouraged by that. But, it really comes down to leadership. And what is the important things for leadership, at least in my opinion, it's taking care of our people. We put that first. And we have to build trust and faith in the people that are working on our teams, first and foremost, during these periods. Because we've gone from what is a boom into some kind of panic, and then we have some element of calm, and then after that we start coming up with our plans, and then what we really need to have all through this is the assurance that there's a job for you at the end. So retaining our talent and keeping people happy is the most important. And so once we've got that stabilization going, then we can start to deal with it. And ironically, on this occasion, technology's played a key role. We've seen everybody working from home. We've seen the use of Zoom. We've seen countries coming out with local technologies that traditionally would be coming from the US or certain parts of Asia. But we've really seen that extend into all countries around the world. So local technology has been really big. And here in Marriott, we've come out of this and decided that we're not going to sit down and just wait. We're going to get on with it, and we're going to knock off some big projects. We're starting with replacing our CRS Marsha, which has been in the system for over 50 years. So it's about time we deal with that. So that's coming up in the next couple of years. We've got PMS options coming up, and we're also replacing our loyalty systems. So this is major work. So coming out of this, and even with a situation where some of our business hasn't come back yet, we're still very aggressive on tech deployment, improving our infrastructure and getting on with the job. We certainly can't afford to sit idle and wait. Other projects we're working on, as I mentioned, is our Opera 5.6 upgrade to get our compliance levels up, moving to the cloud, mobile key, the list goes on. So we've got a lot going on. We're certainly not going to just kind of take it on as a hit and wait for it to end. We're really trying to maximize the opportunity, and at the same time provide work for our team, and at the same time keep everybody on the team motivated and happy. That's how we've led through this crisis.
I think that's an excellent perspective, and I think the entire aspect of how you're keeping employees at the center with the rebound strategy, right, coming on the back of it, I think is absolutely profound. So an additional question on this one, Martin, would be that given this entire flux that we have seen, how would you basically look at the entire decisioning processes? So have decision cycles on technology investments, business technology investments, right? Have they changed? Is innovation, being done in a slightly different way from how it used to be done before? So any perspectives on that?
Yeah, sure. So, it's easy to get into a cost discussion and driving costs down. We're in a crisis. Our revenues have been hit. We need to cut costs, right? That's where one might think, you should go. But frankly, here in IT, we've cut some costs, but the reality is there's not much to cut. We're already running thin, and the use of technology is expanded left, right, and center. So you can't cut something that's expanding. It's very difficult. So we contain the costs, and we did get some great help from our vendors, and I say thank you to all of them. They all came forward and provided some relief during those critical periods when we had, our associates on furlough without pay, hotels closed and the like. So yeah, that's how we manage. But what we're really looking at is driving value of IT, and to do that, there's really only a simple way. Let's call it simple if you like, is increasing revenue. That's what we need to do. We need to get ourselves back to where we were. And frankly, as I said, we've got these big projects coming, so money is tight. So what it really, really boils down to is ruthless prioritization. That's what it's really all about. We have to choose one thing over another. And certain things will have to wait, and certain things can't be done. And really, I'm in IT, right? No matter what we do with all these fancy tools, they're not for me. They're for our business partners. So the business partners really need to decide, what do they really want and what can they live with and without. And that's going to then give us that prioritization and the decision making with the funds that we have. But having said that, we set up a council in our Asia Pacific area because we had so many requests for this technology and that. And so we got our IT team together, and we review which are the right technologies with those business partners, which ones are not going to proceed, to organize ourselves better around the resources and funds that we have. So we did that. Another thing that we're focused on is moving CapEx to OpEx. CapEx to OpEx takes that frequent hit from our ownership group and spreads it out over time, makes it a bit easier to digest, and that ties back to our cloud operation. And with this all comes scaling. So as we scale up our organization, it provides opportunity to reduce costs in some areas. As we get bigger, we can spread the cost further and not necessarily add the resourcing on top of that every time, so we get some savings. And now talking about the revenue side, as I mentioned, it's all about commerce and digital. So we've got F&B ordering systems that we're working on, new technology there. Facilities, pushing things like spa and other kiosks, those sort of things, they all provide an opportunity for our guests to buy more things from us. We also focus on local language support, personalization, WeChat, points activation for food and beverage. So these are the things that we're looking into right now to move us forward. So I wouldn't say cost is really the be-all and end-all. I think we're really looking at the glass half full and trying to find where's the upside, how do we get there, and how do we, as I said, ruthlessly prioritize what we're doing.
Sure. So before I come to the next question, just a quick note for the audience. If you have any comments, any questions, you might just want to, pop it into the chat window, and we'll be happy to try and basically weave it into the entire conversation as well. Or we could also take that and try and see as to how to address that in a subsequent session. But please keep your, your comments and your inputs flowing. Right now, coming to the next question, Martin, and you kind of touch upon this, but let me probably try and double down a little bit more. Right, you did talk about the fact that cost reduction may not really be the largest, let's say, focus, right, in your opinion. However, there are a whole bunch of new technologies, intelligent automation technologies that people may be extremely induced to try and look forward to, right, as a way of trying to reduce costs and basically lean out process even further. Any views, any perspectives in terms of how you see those kind of technologies take shape in the hospitality industry?
I think first and foremost, we need to take account of our customer profile has changed. We've got staycations now. That word popped up during COVID, right? We've got leisure. Our leisure travel is dominating now. our corporates haven't fully come back yet. Obviously, people can't board planes and travel. Groups are limited as well. So we've had to adapt. And it takes two to tango, right? So even if here in Hong Kong, I'm in the office, it's an open environment, we can go around and do things, but I'm still 21 days or 14 days quarantine coming back here. And if I go to another country, it's another 14. So let's say I take a business trip for 3 days, that turns into a 30-day exercise. Well, it's just not going to work. So we rely upon changes there first and foremost. But, everybody came out with contactless everything. And yeah, you've got to really pick the right fruit off the tree, the low-hanging fruit. There were so many products out there. And so we've tried to find what contactless technology is really going to be useful to us. There's a lot of this clean tech that's come out. Again, a lot of it was, didn't really get off the ground. So those things haven't really succeeded. But what has is more drive towards our mobile app, our Bonvoy app, mobility, working from away from the office, local applications, as I mentioned, the personalization, this whole drive towards using more of that digital tech at the front side has really played out. And so when you tie that back to what I said, staycation, leisure, pushing our F&B operations, some of that all kind of ties in nicely. And so that's where our effort is focused when it comes to, the situation we're in right now from a business standpoint.
Right, right. Martin, on the guest experience side of the house, while you did touch upon some of the technology advancements or the technology explorations that are happening, how do you see the future of guest experience? Where do you see new technologies come in that particular area? Which use cases or which areas do you see get impacted dramatically uh,
Yeah,
in this new paradigm?
I think it's that whole guest journey. In the old days, it used to just be on arrival and on checkout and everything in between. But there's the pre-arrival, there's the booking phase, there's the post-checkout phase, the billing options. There's so many things on the side now that we have to take into account. And I think, executing the basics are there today, and we get those things done, pre-arrival email messages, and those things are all happening, right? However, I think it really comes back to the personalization, the intuitiveness. Like if you knew that I wanted to go for a massage when I arrive after a long flight, you might suggest it during the booking phase, and even go as far to suggest the particular massage that I prefer, or the oil to use, or whatever it may be. We've got to find a way to get to the next level and really understand our customer individually, and put things in front of them that they're going to buy. We're really going through a transition here at Marriott. It's not just selling rooms anymore. There's F&B, there's ancillary, and there's other businesses that we're entering. So how do we tie, the Ritz-Carlton yacht into the picture of a courtyard in downtown Shanghai? I mean, as a company using technology, these are the kind of things we really need to figure out. And, I think it comes back to one very important area, which is our loyalty program. We put that front and center, that's where we start. And if we can just get that intuitive technology to ever improve, continue to evolve and get better, the more predictive we can be, but not upset our customer base. And I think that's the delicate balance that you want. You don't want to be interfering with a customer decision-making process, but you want to make them feel like we know who they are, we know what they like, and we want to help them select that and buy it, and use our products and services in our hotels and our other businesses.
Right, right. So I think one very important aspect that you kind of touched upon, and you talked about loyalty, and you talked about the entire aspect of cross property kind of models, right? So you check into a certain hotel, you should also be able to probably cross sell stuff that may be happening in some other hotel as well, right? In the vicinity perhaps, or based on where the guest is traveling, maybe certain recommendations or nudges in terms of what they could do with the other properties that they may be visiting or might want to visit. So in this entire context, Martin, the role of data analytics will become extremely important. The ability to really not only recognize the guest, but also to basically build a very deep understanding of the guest, right? In terms of preferences, in terms of what kind of brands do they really, uh, go and experience. How do you really build that guest journey, which is aligned to your knowledge of the guest? So, what's your view in terms of how the data analytics paradigm is going to really move up? Again, given the pandemic context, are there investments that are happening in that area that one should look
Yeah.
forward to, right?
Well, it all started with the term big data and everybody was excited. But I think let's just be realistic, okay? Hotel hospitality business, it isn't quite like that. It's really hard to pull off. It's really hard to pull off because, frankly, we've got so many data pools spread across the place that we would need to pull together and, sync up together. And that takes time to do. We've got property data we've got to account for that's not above property. It's hard to deal with. We're going to cloud, but not everything is there. So we've got guest information on property and some of it in the cloud. So that makes it tricky. And we've also got, a labor cost in entering data. And so during periods like we are now, then obviously, staffing costs need to be carefully watched. So how much do you invest in entering data into systems and generate value from that? And the other angle, of course, is using marketing information that's more publicly available that you can get access to. So I think there's a lot of concepts there, but execution is really what it's going to boil down to. And if the execution isn't there, then it'll be a failure. So yeah, I think what's important is to build on incremental steps. You can't get everything done overnight, right? You've got to build on it step by step. Before that, you need a strategy. Where are you trying to get to? And work your way back from there incrementally over time. And then you're going to have to be hardline about decisions you make with your architecture, which systems are going to be needed, and not get distracted so you run away from that opportunity that presumably once you reach utopia and everything's in a place that can all be read, understood, analyzed, then you can get some really efficient data. We do have a guest experience system in our organization now. It's in all of our hotels. So we're starting to build on that right now, but it is going to take time. And our revenue management team are also very interested in this space, obviously, from a revenue improvement standpoint. What can we do in AI? And there's some elements of that going on as we speak with revenue management tools and the like that exist today. But there's always that, potential to have revenue management tools, and then, hotels individually might have their own idea about how room allocation should be on a certain day and start meddling with that and undo the algorithms and take you away from where you're really trying to get to. So whatever you're putting in better be damn good, better be better than somebody manually doing it. Otherwise, your operators are going to step in and take it over and you're going to go nowhere. So I think there's a lot of those considerations. So, but again, it always comes back to customer buying habits. What are they? And then how are we going to capitalize on that with AI? I think that's where we should be looking. On the back of house, not really much happening in that space, I don't think. Very slow in that area. So that's what I would tell you. I know we're short from time, so I'll halt there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think very rich insights, Martin. Thank you for that. So yeah, I know we are coming to the top of the hour for this particular event. So let me just probably try and summarize some of the takeaways from my perspective, and then I'll hand it over to Martin to kind of give his summary takeaways as well, and probably recommendations for for all the folks who basically are associated with the hospitality industry. So essentially, I think there were 3 or 4 points that I thought were very key. The first point that you basically brought out in terms of looking at the entire employee engagement paradigm, and to keep that entire employee engagement going even in a downturn or in an economic crisis, so that you could rebound faster, better, stronger, right? I think it's a very important point that many of us tend to probably gloss over at times. I think it's a very, very fundamental, let's say, um, point, especially in our industry, which is, driven by customers and by employees, right? Pretty much. I think the other point that you made around, the ruthless prioritization around the decision making, because obviously, when you start looking at uh, the number of things that need to be done versus the kind of money which is available, right? There has to be a very clear focus on business ROI. Where is it that you can actually get the highest return on your investments and a very quick time, especially in the revival and survival phase. It's very important to make sure that the business keeps running and keeps finding new sources of revenue. So that entire aspect of how do you really run this ruthless prioritization becomes very key. uh, the third point that I want to basically, cull out of this conversation from you, Martin, is the entire focus on how the guest experience piece is really expanded. It's an end-to-end customer journey, guest journey kind of model, from something which used to be a very focused activity at the point of check-in or check-out, to a point where you're actually trying to model the entire journey through the you know through the pre-arrival, post-arrival, post-stay kind of processes. I think that becomes extremely important. The role of loyalty in terms of basically enabling a much better handle on the guests in terms of knowledge, insights on guests, and then basically using that as an asset to really drive further engagement and revenue, ancillary revenue opportunities, is obviously something that comes out very clearly. And last but not least, the entire aspect of how do you really build a data analytics strategy, and the need for it to be really something that is thought through in two ways. One is probably the larger strategy view in terms of where you want to be in a few years from now, and to the incremental step by step approach that can basically get us there, because it's not a big bang kind of problem. It's a problem that has to be solved methodically, in a very structured fashion as you go forward. So these were some of the takeaways that I had. uh, Martin, I'll hand it over to you for your summary remarks and probably your recommendations.
Yeah, look, I think you've summarized it extremely well. I think those are the key points. The only comments I would make is one, I think, after what we've all been through, we're coming out bigger and stronger. I believe going forward, we're really well positioned with our projects and activities here at Marriott and our people in place to grasp the exponential opportunities in the expansion of our brands and products and hotels and business returning, and those various channels that haven't come back fully yet coming back to life. So I think that's going to be even better than ever before. So I think that's really important. And two, I think people have really got used to technology more and more than ever, more acceptable, more understood, more hands-on, more within the hands of everybody, and a lot more interest. And I think that makes, in some ways, my job easier and in some ways harder. So those are the 2 points I would put on the tail end.
Thank you, Martin. So I think this has been a very engrossing conversation, and personally a lot of takeouts from me. So thank you for that. To the audience, I would like to thank them for participating in this. Do keep your comments coming in. We'll be happy to look at those comments and the feedback that you have as well. And hopefully we'll structure more interactions of this nature with Martin and other luminaries as we go forward. Finally, I would like to thank Martin for taking time out from his very, very busy schedule. And I think many of the things that Martin, you spoke, I think very valuable insights. These are like golden nuggets of wisdom coming from being a practitioner, being somebody who's really seen how the industry has evolved and how it is really embracing technology in these trying times as well. So thank you for that. With
Yes,
that,
Sandeep, it's been great. Thanks for having me today. Appreciate it very much.
thank you, Martin. Thank you, everyone. With that, we'll close the session. Thank you.